is officially 7 o'clock. Are we all ready? All right, call to order the Tuesday, January 24th, 2023 meeting of the Planning Commission. Everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can you do the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Bartis?
Here.
Commissioner Dolan?
Here.
Chair Kempner?
Here.
Commissioner Patterson?
Here.
Commissioner Hamame noted that she would be out of town for this meeting. Commissioner Pasalacqua?
Here.
Commissioner Woods?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would anyone like to make a motion excusing our absent commissioner?
I'll make a motion excusing Commissioner
Hamame.
from today's proceedings.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Approval of agenda. Does anyone have any changes or motions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Approval of minutes of the December 20th, 2022 meeting. Does anyone have any changes or motions?
Motion to approve as presented.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Communications. Do we have any communications?
I have no communications for you.
Perfect. Citizens' comments. Our audience is empty. So moving on to old business. Item number 1 is public hearing for zoning in order to regulate vape shops. Who is presenting for us?
I can do that. So this is an ordinance that we've looked at for several months now. Carlisle Wortman has helped us with that. At the previous Planning Commission meeting in December, the commission felt that there was no other corrections or additions that needed to be made. So at this point, it's presented to you for consideration for a recommendation to council and to hold the required public hearing, which has been noticed as required.
Thank you. Any discussion before I open our public hearing? All right, I will open the public hearing at 7:02. Do we have any communications on this?
We have not received any comments.
Okay. And seeing no one in the audience, I will close the public hearing at 7:03. Any discussion or motions? We've gone over this a number of times, so. But if anybody has anything to add or thoughts or motions? Anyone?
I have no comments. I can make a motion to approve. I have to read all this. The ordinance to the City Council of the City of Berkeley to amend sections 138-32, section 138-387, section 138-394, section 138-419, section 138-472, section 138-475, section 138-487, and section 138-529 of chapter 138, zoning in order to regulate vape shops.
Second.
My only correction is that you flip-flopped a couple numbers. It's 138, 427, 138, 457.
Nobody else wanted to do it. Do you want me to read
That's
it again?
good.
Or?
I'm just-
All right.
I'll
We'll
correct
just
it for
note
the
the
minutes.
correction.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? All right, do you want to do the roll call?
Yep. Commissioner Bartis?
Yes.
Commissioner Dolan?
Yes.
Chair Kempner?
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pasalacqua?
Yes.
Commissioner Woods?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Perfect. Item number 2 will be another public hearing for an ordinance to amend in order to add nursery schools, day nurseries, and childcare centers to the 12-mile district as a special use.
So this is another one that we had a discussion on in December. We have a business owner who has an existing business in the 12-mile district who would like to expand her childcare business. It's a use that's not currently allowed, so she is non-conforming in that district. In order to expand, we would need to add this as a use. So in conjunction with doing this for the local business district just a year or two ago, I brought to you language that just basically used those same standards. The commission talked about it and decided a special land use was the place for this instead of a principal permitted use. And the members that were present in December determined it would be fine to move forward with a public hearing at this meeting. So this is before you now. Same procedure as the vape shop. We're looking for a recommendation to council if the commission is comfortable.
Thank you. Discussion, comments, thoughts?
The only, and I know I wasn't here for the last meeting, so, my apologies if things like this were discussed. In somewhat wearing my DDA hat, I don't have a concern with the service of a daycare or a nursery. I've got kids, they gotta go somewhere. I totally get that, and it's good to see a business want to expand. I would say, though, that I don't think nurseries or daycares, as it relates to things that the DDA looks at in uses in downtowns and vibrant downtowns, is a use that would necessarily click with that goal. So I'm not against nurseries. I would say that I probably am not supportive of them being in the district, given the types of business and development that the DDA pursues. But even from a planning principle of just trying to generate walkable, viable downtowns with businesses that are conducive to that. But it's not my attempt to be negative here. It's just my thoughts and comments on the use in the 12-mile district.
And I think we slightly touched on it last time, that it's not maybe the ideal downtown sort of business, but it's also a use that in some ways can promote, right? Like if you're working down there, if you're living down there and you pick up your child, then, maybe we go out to dinner after and we can utilize one of those restaurants. It's something that the city needs for sure. Maybe not ideal placement, but it's kind of balancing juggling all of these different things.
Sure.
Any other thoughts, comments, discussion? Motions?
Oh, you have the public
Oh,
hearing.
you're right, sorry. I will open the public hearing at 7:08. Do we have any communications on this?
No communications.
And seeing no one in the audience, I will close public hearing at 7:08. Okay, discussions, motions, thoughts?
The only other thing I would add is just to make sure that I understand, so I take the appropriate position, is the amendment is to make it a special use. So it still comes under our review each and every time to say, maybe by wording, it's allowed, but by special circumstances or context, we are not going to allow it. Like, we retain that ability with the special use.
One of the things that we were talking about is that we don't have a whole lot of regulations surrounding it, right? And we don't want a huge parking lot so everybody who's dropping their child off there can park there, right? But most of the day it's unused. But we don't have anything that talks about a stacking lane or anything. We don't want cars hanging out onto 12 Mile or the side streets or anything like that. So that gives us a little bit more leeway to massage it into being what we need it to be.
But massaging it to be what we want it to be, as opposed to saying, we just don't think this works here, even though it's listed under a permitted use.
If it's listed as a special land use, you have standards that are discretionary.
rather than mandatory. The ones in the site plan are mandatory. If it meets all the regulations, you need to approve it. A special land use allows for discretion for you to look at the site, for you to look at the traffic inputs, impacts, for you to look on the business impacts of the downtown. So context then matters, and that can be a finding as a reason to say no. And I think when we discussed this before, I brought up, I'd seen daycares in downtown situations. And usually the challenge is on pick up and drop off when they have that heavy use. Where do the cars go, and where is parking? Where are people walking? And are they safe in doing so? And that really is a site-by-site analysis.
And that would really come into play on 12 Mile because there's not a lot of parking lots that would be able to facilitate the drop-off and pickup of a heavily, a large daycare center.
Right, so with that in mind, and again, my apologies if I missed it from prior meetings, I know that this is somewhat spurred by the current business owner's interest in expanding.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know what that expansion is?
I don't have a plan for it yet. I know it's on the opposite side of 12 Mile from the current center. So there's teachable moments is the daycare center.
So it's our understanding that they would be looking to vacate that property.
No, they would not be looking to vacate it. They would be opening, I guess it'd be like an annex, for lack of a better word,
Across the street?
across the street.
What are the limits of the 12-mile district?
What do you mean? Like the actual?
Yeah, it's Woodward
Yeah.
and Coolidge. I'm kind of
No,
forgetting.
it's not Woodward to Coolidge at all. It goes most of the length of 12 Mile. You caught me with something I didn't have ready to go, Joe.
We're testing
'Cause
you.
I honestly don't
Yeah.
know where Teachable Moments is either. So-
Teachable
It's
Moments
in the
is,
corner of Cummings and 12.
That's the red building, it's got that little side
Yeah.
parking lot.
We used to park on that road when, for school.
Ooh, hmm.
okay, so how do I zoom in?
It's the blue, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Oh, and I can't.
Oh, yeah, the east 12-mile is its own thing.
Yeah, that's the downtown. It gets into the downtown, and then
east
we
of-
have the
east-
gateway.
East
What's-
of Coolidge,
what's-
yeah.
What's the dividing road there between the downtown and the 12 Mile?
So I think the 12 Mile is the blue. I can't read that. Can anyone read that?
No.
Maybe better on your screen.
Can you see that?
Tyler, okay.
No, this is not controlled
Oh,
by that. Separate
okay.
two computers. It's Tyler.
Tyler, yeah.
And then the dots are the downtown district, and then the gateway district is also there.
Okay. Another follow-up question then with the non-conformance. So an expansion requires site plan review, even if it's not attached to the existing building? Well,
So-
I guess no matter what, it's like two separate entities, sites.
Right, but a non-conforming use can't expand. So even if the owner was talking about moving to an adjacent space and just expanding into that adjacent space or putting on a second story or something, she can't expand because it's a non-conforming use. She can't increase the size of that use.
Even if it's not physically adjacent.
Right, so no daycares could be approved in the 12 Mile district right now.
Okay.
So how did that get there in the first place? Because that was fairly recently.
Yeah, I guess I'm sure.
It's a very good question.
I'm sorry.
No, it's something I've thought about too.
Me too.
Okay.
But as a special land use, also, the instance I was talking about in the city of Dexter, where it's equivalent to what the eastern edge of 12 Mile would be, they look to put, they had limitations on the number of children. And that their license then is pegged to that, because you have to have the state usually looks for a sign off. So you could place certain limitations or say that you only have, we only want you to have X amount. And usually that's by the square footage. So there's ways for you in your conditions of approval for a special land use, if you recommended this and city council passed it in the future to limit size. And you also, you could also place conditions on the special land use permit.
Is this, I'm sorry if you said this, but is this use permitted as a primary use on where the kinder care is, or whatever that is on the far?
On,
other side
over
of
by
12 Mile?
the
Yeah.
American Legion? Yeah.
Right near Woodward.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that's the local business district, and when kinder care was coming through, daycares were added there
Okay.
as a special land use.
Okay. Oh, as a
That
special
is
land
that area of
use.
12 Mile and then
Yes.
Woodward,
Oh.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, is there any district where this use is a principal use or primary use? Or it's just essentially always a special land use for all of our districts?
I'd have to look district by
Okay.
district. I mean, anything that's 6 kids and under is allowed anywhere.
Right, I remember that.
Yeah. I'd have to look district
But
by
even
district.
if she
No,
wanted to
no.
tear down a wall and expand her square footage, it wouldn't be allowed right now.
No.
Correct.
It's unique because she wants to go across the street, but
Which is, yeah.
she couldn't even add a foot to her footprint right now.
Mm-hmm.
Or be because she's non-conforming.
Right.
And, we definitely are in dire need of daycares. Every local daycare has a extreme waiting list. So it's definitely something that the community needs. And because lots of our space is commercial space is downtown, it doesn't leave us a ton of options in where they could go either.
So Greenfield District does allow them as a principal permitted use.
Because we allow anything on Greenfield.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
Well, when you think of most daycares, traditionally, those are the kind of thoroughfares they're on with those kind of lots. The depth, the parking availability, the stacking for drop-off and pickup. I have a hard time racking my head. I'm putting the cart before the horse and even more about this across the street thing, but that's, I guess, why the special use
Right. That would be a
is part of
separate.
it.
And the blue lines in the right of way there, is that water service? Are those water lines?
I'm not sure what those blue lines are.
Not indicated in the legend.
I don't think it's water lines, no.
It's definitely not water lines.
No, it's the plats.
Oh, there you go.
It's the plat lines. Is the plats are in the gray font that runs diagonal.
You learned your feet tonight.
Have we just, because she's already, and it's not just this business, like, I don't want to refer to her business as she, but have there been any complaints about parking or stacking or anything like that
No, we haven't.
that
had
you're
any.
aware of? So
Yeah,
there's been no issues. It's been there
For a while, yeah.
for a while. And it's a needed business in our district, somewhere in our city. Greenfield, that's a little more of a challenge because you have to tear down houses and acquire them and tear them down that way. But there's not really a spot on Greenfield. She's a successful business wanting to expand. I know we don't do it just per business, but I think like Chair Kempner said, if we allow it, then they could, when they pick up their children, pop into a restaurant, pop into other businesses downtown that are children friendly.
As opposed to
And the-
leaving the city to go pick up your child somewhere and then hitting
Stopping for dinner.
there.
Yeah, and the only other ramification, though, is if it's allowed in this single case, it could be allowed in the future as well. It could come forth
For sure.
for other locations, too, and then it could be daycare row or something like
Yeah,
that.
we
you
certainly
know, like-
wouldn't want to row.
But we
with
have
daycare in
that
12 Mile.
ability to say with a special land
Right.
use, you have one, two
It'll
doors
still come
down.
before us.
Yeah.
Is the special land use truly a subjective? I don't know if you use subjective, though. Like if somebody came to us and they hit all the bulletin points of a special land use, can we still say no?
So there are standards.
Right.
They're a little bit
Yeah, there's-
vague, and they talk about harmonizing with surrounding properties and not having detrimental impacts on traffic and things like that, you would want to, if you were denying someone their special land use request,
To have the reason.
cite specific standards
Sure.
and match them to those that are in the ordinance with reasons.
Okay. So if we had one that came in, or if she came in and she's like, I'm gonna open a daycare, the 3 buildings across the street, it's gonna be a huge daycare, we can be like, nope. But even though she went through and hit every single bulletin point, we can still say, no, it's too large. Traffic's a
Well,
concern.
you have to say,
or-
yeah, it's too large, it will attract too many vehicles, we're concerned about impacts on the surrounding roadways. You'd have to, like, tie it to the
Yeah,
things that
okay.
are listed for special land use.
And I just want to be clear that we're actually deciding on the special land use,
Right.
not in relation to, this daycare just spurred the conversation.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's very
It's
separate,
not her
right?
business,
If
it's-
she could decide not to do it, a different business could decide to do it, like.
Or 15 of them could decide. Really, it could be if we're allowing it, every building there could, but they would all come before us.
But things left as they are, they would only be permitted on Greenfield under these, because right now it's a non-conforming use in those districts.
So they're permitted on Greenfield as a principal permitted use, so by right, if they meet the standards of the zoning ordinance, they get to move forward. They're permitted in, and we're talking about larger daycare, so this is larger than 12 children. They're permitted as a special land use in local business. And I think there was one other district, the office district, I think.
Or office.
No, maybe I just thought they should be in, no, office is a special land use too.
And then Woodward Telescopes, the local business. There you go. So anything in the Woodward district, also, anything in the local business district is allowed in the Woodward district. So just, it doesn't explicitly say that, but by default, that goes through.
And to put the timeline in place, at the last meeting, the board decided to consider / allow it as a special land use. It's this language that we're voting on tonight. Is that correct?
So last time it just came as a discussion point. Is this something that we want to allow? Do we want to allow it as a special land use or a permitted by right use? And after discussion, we decided that special land use is probably better than a by right, but we thought that it was still a need, so we should probably allow it in the realm of special land use. Discussion, questions, any more motions? Y'all are very quiet.
Well, I can try to do it again, see if I can get my numbers right. Keep your ears open. All right, I have a motion to approve an ordinance of the city council, to the city council of the city of Berkeley of Michigan to amend section 138-458 of chapter 138 zoning in order to add nursery schools, day nurseries, and childcare centers to the 12-mile district as special use.
And just to clarify, that's recommend approval.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Would you like to call the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Dolan,
Yes.
Chair Kempner,
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Pasalakwa,
Yes.
Commissioner Woods,
Yes.
Commissioner Bartis.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
And outdoor seating, a continued discussion of our outdoor seating amendment. Who wants to lead us on this one?
I'm going to throw it to you, Megan.
Okay. So at your last meeting, we gave you a draft of outdoor seating, and then we got into a discussion of, Kristen did an excellent job going out and measuring and looking at specific sites and saying, will this really work? And her conclusions back were maybe not in all cases. And so we got bogged down in that detail. And so what my firm did is we used a program called NearMap, which has aerial photos, and we can do some measurements. And we measured we had an intern who measured the sidewalk width of each block. And that's the Excel sheet that's at the back of that, behind our memo. And so we did Coolidge from 11 to 12 mile, 12 mile to Greenfield to Coolidge, and 11 mile from Greenfield to Coolidge. And there definitely shook out that there are some areas where there's no more than 5 feet. that the majority of the width of the sidewalk is 5 feet, and so therefore there wouldn't be opportunity for outdoor seating there. However, there were some places where it was 20 to 23 feet wide. And so if you look at that, we summarized some suitable segments on page 2 of our memo. There seemed to be 13 segments along 11 Mile and between Greenfield and Coolidge that could host sidewalks that are 10 feet or wider. 28 segments along 12 Mile, roughly split between north and south, had, again, that width. And the widest segment is between Gardner and Griffith. Every segment along Coolidge between 11 and 12 Mile has sidewalks that are 10 feet or wider. Most of those segments are 12 to 13 feet. Segments with either widths of 10 feet or greater with adjacent parking or to support outdoor seating that could minimize the sidewalk encroachment were highlighted on our spreadsheet. And also on the spreadsheet in the notes, you'll notice that we put when there was the presence of trees or street furniture that could possibly interfere. And then in terms of unsuitable segments, there was only one segment of 11 Mile Road between Elwood and Thomas that has less than 10 feet. But there were 4 segments along 12 Mile Road, Bacon's to Cummins south, Thomas to Cummins north, Elwood to Greenfield south, and Oakshire to Phillips south. And so if you were to make this policy change and you're trying to stack winners and losers, that gives you some idea of who would have that privilege and who would not. Something to compensate for that, and this is not in the memo, but we discussed it, was parklets. So using the on-street parking or an adjacent roadway as space that could be taken and outdoor seating could be put there. As when you had the closure, I think of Robina
Griffith is closed right
in
now.
Griffith. I'm sorry, it was the closure of Griffith. So that's an example of that, but maybe it could just be one on-street parking space. And then, Kristen, the next planning commission meeting?
Yeah, so I was gonna note this later, but parklets, that idea of going forward with parklets is kind of caught the ear of everyone. I know you guys have expressed some interest in it. Council's now expressed some interest in it as well. We are required with our RRC certification that we're working towards to have a joint meeting of some of our development boards and commissions. So we have no items right now no development items for our February planning commission meeting. So tentatively, probably almost surely, that meeting will become a work session between council and planning commission to talk about parklets. And Megan will be there to help us all figure out what we need to know and determine if we want to move forward with something like that. It's not on the same track time-wise as this outdoor seating ordinance. It's going to take some more time to put together. But I think there is, in business owners that we've talked to, just kind of spotty, but anecdotally, there's an interest in having the city explore that, and there's an interest on council. And I know you have all mentioned it as well. So stay tuned for more on parklets.
So I just wanted to throw that out there because that's another moving policy piece, but that could come into play here in terms of a way to ameliorate those impacts of those businesses that just don't have the wider sidewalks at this point.
And the only other caveat I want to throw in on parklets that we need to keep in mind is we have tons of opportunity for that on Coolidge because that is a city road. 12 Mile becomes trickier because it's a county road. So that just becomes a little bit more of a maybe.
So we had some discussion questions that we cited at the end is, number one, should the ordinance, if you wanted to keep going with these ordinance amendments, identify a specific amendment area width to host outdoor seating on a sidewalk, maybe between 10 to 15 feet, or after accounting for the 5 feet of pedestrian access or accessible setbacks, because you have a 2 foot, yet the tables and the enclosures have to be 2 feet away from the edge of the sidewalk. There's just a lot of moving parts. And then in order to get 1 to 2 tables stacked in, you need about that amount of room.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I would say you need at least 10 feet, and that would give you like the bistro tables. So we're not talking about like a 4-top table. We're talking about a 2-person small table.
Also,
To provide the passable
To provide 5 feet of, of passable space, and then the bistro table, and then if you're serving alcohol, you need to provide the enclosure too.
Should there be exceptions for the presence of street furnishings, street trees, benches, trashes, receptacles for, and per the ADA, you could actually narrow it down to 1 lane, so 3 feet, if you have a pull-off area. And we could ask people to show that in their sketch plan, if they, or that the 5 feet path could be circuitous. It doesn't have to be in a straight line. And then the last question was, on corner parcels, should the side street sidewalk or the adjacent crosswalk be taken into consideration? And one of the reasons I asked that is right now that if the, we've required that there's a 2 feet, the seating be 2 feet away, or an enclosure be 2 feet away from any roadway or drive aisle, so anywhere where a car is moving. And so that's gonna, again, if you think of, you're stacking feet in, it's gonna affect things. And the other thing that I wanted to bring to you that our intern asked me as well was on a bicycle lane, would that be the same setback as a passing lane? I said, well, they've had a bicycle lane. It was a little controversial, but I know there's something that you're thinking about in terms of that. So maybe there should be a setback in there, or we should think about how you would treat that, whether that would be different, or you would lump that in with the same way that you would deal with cars.
So lots of additional questions on this one.
And so one question for clarification, when you did the measurements, it didn't, like, you just measured the width of the sidewalk. If there was a tree there, that is still in that.
Yeah,
That
that is
width,
still in
right?
that, but
Yes.
then we noted that, I think you'll see that there's either several street trees.
Right.
At Catalpa and Sunny Knoll, for instance, and Coolidge said City and Plaza at the center of the segment, street trees, parking adjacent to the sidewalk.
Thoughts?
So I guess again, just so that I understand here, so you take these measurements, Coolidge, like, so Coolidge Highway, 11 mile to 12 mile sidewalk analysis. You've got the width of a minimum of 6 and a maximum of 23.
Mm-hmm.
Is that that's just the staggered widths on that block?
Yeah, it's from the building face to the edge of the parking lot.
So in
I mean,
some
the edge of
areas-
the sidewalk.
So in some areas it's 6 feet and some it's 23.
Mm-hmm.
So really, the number for us to focus on is the minimums.
Yes.
Just a question, maybe somebody else noticed. On Coolidge, are there already tables and chairs out there? I thought when I was driving through, I saw, and it caught my eye 'cause it's like a hot pink table with 2 chairs. It looks like a metal table with 2 chairs. That's what we're talking about with these, just a 2-seat.
So those are tables that were put out, a lot of them by the DDA. It's not associated with a particular business.
But similar to that size, or these
Yeah,
would be?
I mean, if we were talking about a 5-foot seating area, and I'm going to assume that the place will have alcohol just so that we're accounting for the space that's needed for the enclosure, that's what you're fitting. You're fitting a 2-top table with some sort of, decorative gate or whatever they decide to do.
And some businesses might not serve the alcohol, but still want outdoor seating, such
And
as
then
like
they
the
don't
ice
need-
cream store
Right.
places. Like the
Right.
the bistro table, they might be able to get another table in there.
Maybe
is
they
what we're
could get
thinking,
another
or a
chair
couple
or
chairs or a
something like
bench, or
that. Yeah, I mean, an enclosure probably takes up, what, a foot?
right.
So,
So these minimums really need to be somewhere between 8 and 10 feet for them to have outdoor seating and provide the passable space as it's written now.
Yeah, and take in mind also that what the zoning ordinance amendments allow is sidewalk, but also on parking lots. So like the Green Lantern, their outdoor seating area, which is in their own parking lot, that wouldn't be affected by
Right.
that. That would just be, they'd have to meet their minimum parking still, even if they're taking up 2 to 5 parking spaces.
So I think it's really, what you need to do is go through these questions here and determine how the commission feels. The majority of the text of the ordinance is there.
Is the, it's from the face of building to the, like, the back of the top of the curb, if there's curb there, or did you include the curb, like?
We include the curve. I mean, we're working with
Okay.
aerials. So,
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
'cause
I
it-
thought, I was
so-
thinking that maybe Kristen was out there mentioning.
No, I did that like
no,
a few spaces.
no, we didn't have a wheel. We didn't have
Okay,
Yeah. So, all of this is rough.
okay.
So it's not verified in the field.
I measured
But I
like 3
appreciate
spaces.
the traffic engineer.
Yeah, and then can the,
It's an extra half foot of pavement you can
right,
work with.
just a little bit. Is the sidewalk, is it accommodatable, the 5-foot passing otherwise through, if they have enough space? Like if the configuration allows, or are we thinking continuous sidewalk? So, like, for example, I'm thinking some sidewalk seating I've seen is like, it's not adjacent to the building. It's on the other side of the sidewalk. So like the restaurant, you would have to cross that sidewalk to get to it.
And that would be fine. But there's a provision in there to be 2 feet away from the travel lane too. So-
Okay, yeah.
If
As
you
a
had a big
waitress
enough
in Ann
sidewalk-
Arbor, there was nothing worse than trying to cross that like pedestrian people with stuff, and
Well, that's probably more where the parklet comes into play, because they'll have to.
Yeah.
But they'll have a full sidewalk in which to do it. I mean, for me, I mean, I just think about, I mean, you have a handful of businesses. I mean, it seems like I don't want to say most areas, but maybe the majority, call it 65-35, there's enough space to do it. So in the essence, whether it's the 35, are those in areas where we have businesses that are looking to have traditional outdoor seating, or like in the future, could we? I mean, off the top of my head, I guess without having to traverse it yet, I don't see a problem with narrowing the 5-foot requirement down to like a 3-foot, like a single lane of traffic. Just because, I mean, we are, our hands are tied behind our back with the size of our lots. We have to squeeze every little thing we can out of every square foot for these businesses.
And is it correct, did you mention that the ADA minimum is 3 feet?
The ADA minimum is 5 feet. They do allow for 3 feet in circumstances for one-way pedestrian traffic where there's enough room at the either end of that one-way for people to pull off.
So where it kind of goes back to 5 feet.
Yeah.
Right, it
goes-
could,
Yeah.
it couldn't be a continuous 3
3
feet.
No,
Right,
not
No.
just one-off businesses.
is that something that we could handle with like wording, like 5 feet unless the planning commission finds that?
Unless the community development director or the zoning
okay,
administrator.
yes.
Because this would be,
Right.
we've talked about this being an administrative
Right.
permit.
Unless they find that,
I'm also
So
making-
most people have to aim for 5 feet, but if you have some extenuating circumstance, you could maybe shrink it down to
And
3.
from your list here, there's only 3 that have 5 feet minimum. And then a few that have
So
6 to 10.
They would need 10 feet, because you're talking about 5 feet of outdoor seating space and 5 feet of travel.
So the ones that have minimum of 6 would just disqualify completely.
Right.
I'm in favor of, for this first question, requiring a minimum and requiring the 5 feet, personally.
So requiring like a 10-foot minimum and a 5-foot passing lane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then on the second question, what I've heard from several planning commissioners is you would be in favor of allowing, in special circumstances, at the discretion of the zoning administrator, that 3-foot one-way pedestrian route.
As long as it met ADA requirements.
Okay.
I would hang my hat on, everything's gotta meet ADA.
So let me ask one question as the person who would probably be looking at that. Side streets, what are the commission's thoughts on outdoor seating on some of our narrower side streets that are right off 12 Mile or Coolidge? People have a corner business, and they're not going to have, they probably won't have 10 feet on those streets.
On the sidewalk? I'm sorry.
Yes, on the sidewalk. They probably have like 8 feet.
I mean, I think people still need to be able to walk.
Yeah, I
right?
think you still have to provide, I mean, there's a sidewalk there. I don't think you can block it off. Is that what you're
I'm
essentially
saying
asking?
if there's obstruction, if that's, if that same situation, well, I guess, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying those sidewalks are probably less than 10 feet. So I just want to make sure the commission's comfortable in most cases prohibiting outdoor seating on our interior roads, for lack of a better word.
Is there a way to word it that, like, they have to have a smaller table? Or, I mean, now we're going to be measuring tables, which is
No,
not really the
but
thing.
they need
like,
to show that they have 5 feet on their plan. I mean, if somebody moves a
But
table
the little
a bit
tables
forward-
now, even if you're like on a side street, those would probably work. You could still pass. They're
I
like
don't
a-
know if you'd have 5 feet.
Yeah, table size or not, you'd still need 5 feet, right?
You'd still need 5 feet. Yeah, so.
I mean, I don't know that I feel like we must prohibit them, especially if I think of like, I don't know, is Robina is like where our little Robina Plaza, is that considered downtown, those couple little loops on Robina?
Robina is a little bit of a different animal. They have a nice wide sidewalk there.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's far enough away and there's like a big parking lot, I don't want to say you can't ever sit anybody there if you have enough room for people to walk.
That's what I'm
I don't
thinking,
want to
like-
prohibit it. I just want people to have room to walk, push a stroller.
So if you have your 10 feet in your passing area, good to go, no matter where it is.
But I'd like, well, if I don't,
Wait,
the only thing I want to back up on is the first question is establishing, you know, what is this required amount of footage we want to allow? The second question is, regardless of what that number is, to some extent, should there be exceptions for the presence of street furnishings and then street trees, benches, trash cans, receptacles, etc.? It doesn't say, should there just be an exception for the size of the, you know, the area that the business itself has to work with. What I want to make sure is that, because I'm more, I mean, I guess, without standing there and looking at 3 feet and walking it myself, I'm in favor of allowing it to go down to the 3 feet in certain circumstances, but in my mind, it's not the obstruction of a specific furnishing. It's the business just does not have the depth by no fault of their own, just because of the way the place was built in the 50s.
So you're saying, Mateo, you would go to an 8-foot sidewalk, let's say. Is that what you're saying? You had 5 feet of seating space and 3 feet of passing area?
Yes. Right, because that's the minimum that we could throw out there to these businesses that are kind of hamstrung by these.
Yeah, and I would say maybe that you should flip it the other way, is that require the 5 foot as the pedestrian, the minimum pedestrian width, allowing for certain exceptions in certain cases. And maybe it could be that the street furnishings and that the width of the sidewalk is less than 10 feet. And then maybe let the market do, or let people do what they do. We're making an assumption that everybody will want that 5 feet of area for service. But maybe if somebody could do it in 2 feet, or maybe they have something hanging off a window, or they have stools, there might be things that we're not thinking
It's
about.
true, yeah.
And so rather than mandating that space that the service has to be, let the business owner decide that, and go that way.
I mean, do we think 3 feet's realistic enough for a business to get, like I'm looking at Amici's right now. Like Amici's is the one that pops out to me that's kind of in the crosshairs of the conversation. I mean, I can't tell by looking at it what the footage distance is between their barrier and the curb.
I mean, it's still a fair amount of way.
Yeah, I mean, right, so maybe if if there's as it is works now with what we're discussing, then I don't have a problem with it. I'm just trying to think of like,
They're between, I don't
Again,
know.
Between Tyler and Gardner.
Looks like it's about 12.5 feet.
So they already have something there, right?
So there's their outdoor seating that they have in the summer. So does anyone know how wide the brick strip is?
You can go to, are you in Google?
Yes.
Go to just the plan view of it.
Oh, oops.
It's like 2 feet.
And then you should be able,
I'll get us back there.
oh, you're just in Google Maps.
Yeah, I'm not in Google Earth.
Gotcha. In Google Earth, you
Still
can
do a
measure it.
measurement, though.
Can you?
Yeah, in Google Maps.
Like of the sidewalk?
Yeah,
How do you do it?
Yeah, between Tyler and Gardner, we had that it was 11 feet on the south side.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's more than 10 feet, but again, that's an estimate that could be off by a foot or so. So,
And they have the light pole.
right, the light pole doesn't help.
Kristen, if you right-click, it'll, and measure distance all the way down.
That's cool.
Oh.
Learned us something.
Oh, I guess.
But I think your line's crooked now.
Oh, yeah.
It's your passing
Right,
lane, that's the
yeah.
way you're gonna walk.
We said it could be circuitous. Oh, does someone, okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Try
honestly,
one more time.
that light pole with their fence there, it's not passable by a wheelchair.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Let alone 2 wheelchairs passing each other.
Well, there's probably not 3 feet between the light pole and the curb.
Yeah, so I would be worried about just automatically allowing 3 feet, because I think if it went down to 3 feet, it would have to be absolutely clear of trees, poles,
Can you go back to the
trash
street view?
cans,
Sorry.
in order to get
Did you get your measurement?
wheelchairs.
Yeah, it says
strollers.
13. So maybe it's closer to the 11. So there's their light pole.
So the wheelchair would have to
Go in the
go in the
street.
street
Right.
or through the restaurant, seating area. We don't think that it would pass on the brick,
right.
or safely at least. I mean, we could definitely say it wouldn't be safe.
No, it doesn't. It's not wide enough. Yeah, as far as the minimum too, because those are just 2-person tables, right? I'm thinking. So
It's hard to tell.
yeah.
It looks like it on the right, there's only 2 chairs there. The tall one.
I mean, there might be some efficiencies that they could find in space. There might be an opportunity to shift that barrier more so to the west of the building so that the light pole didn't play such a role. But that's just the example in my head if I'm thinking about where, if we make it 10, 5 and 5, who are we taking out of play?
We say generally 10 feet is the minimum?
Well, I mean, based on this discussion, what I would recommend is just let the business owner take the chance and say that they have to have the minimum 5 feet. There can be.
For the sidewalk.
For the sidewalk. There can be exceptions for something like the light pole.
Sure.
Where maybe it bumps down to 3 feet and then goes back up to 5 feet on their property. And then they have to decide how much space that they want and need themselves. Because there's a bunch of things that come into it, and that could vary business by business. It's, do you have servers out there or not? Because if it is a takeout place and then you're walking out and sitting there yourself, that's different than if it's something like Amici's where you have a server. If it's there's just a bunch of different things that could happen in terms of that outdoor seating based on how the restaurant or beverage shop serves.
Sure.
So rather than imposing something on them that's maybe based on more of a fine dining model, let them then decide how much space they need. But we say, for the protection of the public, you need a minimum 5 feet, but we will entertain exceptions.
I mean, I guess as long as we leave ourselves wiggle room for circumstances, then I'm fine with 10 and 10, 5 and 5.
But just really, it should just be 5.
Just the passing.
Just the 5-foot sidewalk.
Oh, can nobody hear me? Sorry, I'm not important.
So even this business here, like what just looking at this picture, they could, we're saying bump in that guard, like just the fencing there, they could bump that part in so somebody could get 3 feet through the,
Maybe. I mean, we'd
I mean,
have
would
to
that be an
see.
option we would then entertain?
I think
right?
I think the brick paver part is 3 feet.
That's what I was
Is
thinking
what
too.
what I got on
Yeah.
Google Maps anyways, the measurement. I got 3 feet in the
I mean,
paver.
although the light post seems to be partially in that brick area.
Really close for a wheelchair to, or a stroller to fall into the
Agreed.
road.
Agreed.
We're all gonna go out and measure it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Probably don't have the seating outside right now, so.
I mean, in a circumstance like that's obvious with the light pole. That has to be addressed. But I mean, again, if they take the light pole out of the conversation, you know, if it's not there, because there's instances where it won't be. That's what I'm trying to figure out. But I mean, again, so long as the five and you do whatever you want with the rest, regardless of how much you have, but we have the right or the wiggle room to say, in this circumstance, we could allow it down to the minimum of 3. I mean, I guess as long as we have that wiggle room.
It's 3 with passable circumstances though for ADA. Like
Right,
that's
so I mean, you-
really only allowed with pull-offs and like
Because you don't want people
even
stopping
there's
in the middle of a driveway waiting for
there's
somebody to come.
distance requirements too. Like if it's only 3 feet, it can only be for like a 200 feet length
Right,
before
and
you
Yeah.
have.
and we have that.
Oh, yeah, you
lang-
ha-
we have
yeah.
that language, and we can incorporate that in.
Yeah, and it can't be,
that's-
a light pole can't be in the 3 feet that
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
saying. Like, I'm totally, I would keep all that in mind.
Yeah.
I just want a little bit of wiggle room, because like I said, some of these businesses there's nothing they can do about the place was built back when. And if we can keep them in business, you know, a couple extra seats at restaurants.
And it's certainly good for downtown, you know.
Right, it's been
having
great.
people on the sidewalk.
Yeah, it's been great to see people outside.
So what the commission wants to do is continue to go forward with these. Just keep the minimum of 5 feet for the pedestrian walkway, and then write in a place where there can be exceptions due to street furniture or the sidewalk width of the existing sidewalk width of the entire sidewalk, that it can go down to 3 feet as long as it meets ADA, and we will cite these as part of that.
I think that's good.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
and
sounds
then
good.
corner parcels, where are we on corner parcels?
Is there any reason why the same couldn't apply to corners?
Right,
It could.
yeah.
I mean,
Universal.
Chris,
So I think that question, that was one of the things I was mentioning to Megan. I was thinking of corner parcels, so let's just throw Gardner out there just because we're looking at it right now. But if somebody wanted to have outdoor seating on Gardner, let's say, and we let them go down to 3 feet, would we want to look at something like putting in a ramp and a crosswalk so that somebody who was in a wheelchair could get by easier by crossing the street and coming back?
Or like a mid-block?
Kind of, yeah.
If it's blocking the sidewalk, if it's blocking the crosswalk?
If it's blocking the portion of the sidewalk, so say we let this person
okay.
go down to 3 feet for the length of their building, I'm just gonna throw out there. That'd be a long distance, it seems like. Would we wanna do like a mid-block with an ADA ramp and a painted crosswalk? I was just throwing that out there as something that,
at the expense of the city?
no, at the expense of the applicant.
Business? Oh. I mean, I think, so for the example that you give, I think is fair. But I think we would retain the right to say, we're supportive of it, but you got too much.
Yeah,
You
yes.
gotta,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to cut down on it.
I feel like I don't want to put that in.
Yeah,
anything.
I don't think I do either.
Okay.
My thing or her thing?
I agree with you.
Okay. I'm just- I mean, yeah, again, so now I'm like racking my mind for like all these side streets and the sidewalks on side streets, but
I want people outside. I just don't want, I mean, we also want it very walkable. I want it to be easy for people to get wherever they're going. I don't want it to have to be like, I have to cross the street over here and then walk back over here and then
And-
cross the
and if
street
you're-
over here to get to this
You're
building.
pushing a stroller and walking a dog. You don't want to have to cross the street mid-block because, you know, the restaurant at the corner's got a thing
Yeah.
blocking the sidewalk. So maybe, in some cases, that would be appropriate, but I don't know if we want to throw that out there in
Yeah, 'cause you-
verbiage.
And you generally don't want to be like waiting for someone to walk and then like do this sort of thing
Yeah.
either,
Right.
from a continuity path of sidewalk and walkability.
So I think the
That
same
should be
rule then could
minimal.
apply on the side roads with the same considerations for exceptions if needed.
Okay. I think we have enough direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Planning Commission bylaws and rules of procedure.
So this is a yearly item. We look at every January. I made a couple changes that are shown as strike-throughs, and the new portions are underlined. A lot of those are to address that we went from 9 to 7 members. Reference materials I changed because I'm now emailing those things out to new members instead of providing hard copies. Notices, I just changed to reference the Open Meetings Act. So those are the things that we follow anyways for those notices. Work session meetings, I did change that because often our work sessions are over in public safety. So I wanted to change that. And then also, as we get started with the zoning ordinance rewrite, I don't know if we'll need to have other work sessions that are based on commissioner availability, not on the second Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. So I just thought it might be better to keep that a little bit more general. And I think that's about it.
I have one comment.
Yeah.
As opposed to having it as a hard 3 minutes that people can speak during a public hearing, I just would like chairs to have a flexibility. I don't know
Sure.
what might come in front of it, but like 3 minutes unless the chair finds a different amount.
How about 3 minutes at the discretion of the chair?
Perfect.
Okay.
And can we formally ask council if they can look at the whole us excusing somebody thing? Like, can we formally say, can you get rid of that? It just seems really like, it's either like,
Is it meant to call out extreme absenteeism?
yeah, to some degree, but
Somebody who's,
like,
I think, missed the last 2 meetings is asking.
but the thing is like, my
That's
theory
already
is
in
it's
the-
not my business necessarily why
Sure.
somebody missed, right? So we're either just approving everything and then it's a pointless motion, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
it seems like.
I don't think we've ever denied it.
No,
Like,
it's hard
or
to
even know
imagine.
the reasons why people are not here.
Right, so what is the point of us doing it?
So I think if I'm remembering that ordinance correctly, it does say for unexcused absences or resignation from the board. So I can talk to the city manager's office and see if council's interested in changing it. It's a city code thing. I
Just
tend
as
to
a, like-
agree. But maybe they would entertain the idea of saying 4 or more absences in a 1-year period consecutively is considered a resignation. And
Right,
take
like,
out
however they want-
unexcused or
whatever their goal
excused.
was with that, right? Because
I think it was just having someone sign up for a board and then
It's
come
in
to
this.
2 meetings.
No, it's in this, actually, under duties, part B.
And
Vacancies shall occur when a member has missed 4 consecutive regular meetings or 25%.
so that's just ours. I think the ordinance has that too for all of the boards and commissions. But I'm not sure because it's a city code, not the zoning ordinance. But I can pass that message along.
Okay.
Is everyone in agreement as the planning commission?
Sure.
I have a question about, for speaking, is that if you say you can do 4 minutes instead of 3 minutes, that would have to be for everybody in the audience that wanted to
have be
talk
for
about.
everybody.
Right,
Absolutely,
okay.
yeah. I'm just thinking like, there might be an extenuating circumstance where there's a lot of, a zoning amendment and we're looking at all of Coolidge or something and like rezoning it to something and it might be a big enough thing that,
Well, the two
Somebody
for
might
like
wanna
some of the pot places, there's not a ton of people here, but there were a lot of, they wanted to speak their issues on their mind.
Yeah.
And giving them longer than 3 minutes would have been perfectly, it's not like we were gonna be here to midnight, because there were so
Right.
many people, it was, half
Same
a
with
dozen people.
Vincetta. You know, we had to cut them off, and it's like,
so just, just in case, I just don't want to hamstring me or whomever else.
Yeah, we can make that change.
Anything else?
Most of it was just cleaning up and capitalizing letters and
That's like my
nice job. Nice job.
Not enough exclamation points. I wanna
Look,
see more
A
exclamation
lot of red, but a lot of it was just grammar or capitalizing, so
Right.
I liked it.
All right.
I do need a motion on this one.
So we need a motion.
Hold on. Let me just pull it up so I can say it right.
And now that there's no numbers or
Yeah,
letters.
I was going to jump all over it.
Yeah, sure. You have to read the whole thing.
I guess in order to avoid these trip ups, can we just say, motion to approve as presented?
With Lisa's change.
What's that?
With the change for the chair.
Yeah. So-
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so you're not or with anything, like, so we're not going through decimal points and numbers and everything and tripping up whatever's presented on there.
I think that's fine. The only caveat I'll put in is if it's a special land use, we should go into more detail for discretionary decisions.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yes, I second.
Do we need a roll call on this one, or
I don't think so.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those are our bylaws.
So I will post these new updated bylaws to the Google Drive.
Very good. Thank you. Liaison reports?
I did not make it to the environmental last week. Work.
Am I doing DDA stuff? Okay. All right. Yeah, at the last DDA meeting, we've gone over starting to work on our budget for the fiscal year, including the events that the DDA has been putting on. There's been continued conversation about the project potential for some work to be done at Robina. Main Streets Oakland County visited, which was good. We're kind of working through, that process and the programs that we kind of undergo with them and the potential for some grant funding for some things that we want to do.
Cool. I can talk about council. We have a new council member. Commissioner Patterson was just appointed to council.
Not sworn in yet, so okay to be at this meeting. We
Yes.
checked.
Yes. So congratulations with
Thank you.
that. Council has also approved putting a Headley rollback on the May election cycle. So I'm thinking in the weeks to come, we should get a lot more information and explanations about Headley because it's super complicated. And I think once more people understand what it means, they'll be able to wrap their heads around it more. And so, yeah, so next month, we're going to need somebody to step into the vice chair role. And I'm probably stealing Kristen's thunder, but we then need applications for a new planning commissioner.
Thank you for noting that.
And I think that's it. Anyone else?
Just thank you. It's been great on the board. It's been a fun board, and I appreciate all that I've learned. I'll take it with me to council.
Cool.
So this is your last meeting.
This is my last meeting. I'll be sworn in within 10 days. 9 days now. It's all timed out. I don't know when, but within 9 more days.
Should we change your bylaws to 6 people then? Problem solved.
Staff comments?
A few things. The chamber, if anyone is interested, is still looking for a planning commission liaison. I believe they meet Tuesday evenings, I think. But if anyone's interested, let me know, and I can hook you up with Tim Murad, the president of the chamber, our former planning commissioner. They would really like to have a planning commissioner join that. The parking open house is a week from tonight. If anyone's interested, it'll be at the Collaborative Center, which is the big glass front area of the high school. It's just a drop in, so no need to stay, but we'll have our consultants there, and you can just provide your comments and then go on with the rest of your evening. And then I had mentioned the Parklet joint meeting work session. So plan on that in place of our February Planning Commission regular meeting. So the regular meeting will be canceled, and then we will notice a work session of the Planning Commission and the city council. Right now, it's looking like it'll be held in the public safety upstairs conference room. It's 7 o'clock.
Same time.
Yep, 7 o'clock.
Will there
That-
be any like homework or anything to do for that?
no, there's no homework, but
okay.
if you want to start looking
Okay,
at,
yeah, just curious. Okay.
I'm gonna go measure
I
that
think a
brick thing
Google
tomorrow.
of Parklet.
yeah, that would probably be sufficient. But the idea is that we come out of that work session with some clear direction from both planning commission and the parts that you're involved with in the ordinance, and then some of the more broad policy questions we have for council, so that we can move forward with putting that in place.
On the open house, what should people expect when they come there?
So we are trying to model it a little bit, if anyone remembers, off of the downtown master plan open house. So there's going to be 4 or 5 interactive displays. There'll be voting about which, how you prefer to see parking, particularly in the downtown area. There's going to be some educational material about these are the things that we need to consider when we're looking at potential parking. Here are the problems that are unique to Berkley. There'll be a general comment area. So if you came to the downtown master plan, that's what we're kind of going for.
Okay.
Probably on a smaller scale, though, because we're just not talking about quite as big of a topic.
Right. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, I have one more thing.
Yeah.
We did go out for an RFP for the zoning ordinance rewrite. We've got some responses back. I'm hoping to send that to council for an award of the contract in February. And then we would kick off shortly thereafter.
Exciting.
Yeah.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion adjourned.
Are you really? No.